Hi, this is how to use N-1, which is a Max for Live plugin that I have made, and it was inspired by Mr. Bill's exponential rhythms video, which I would highly recommend you to check out. And I wanted to make a way of making exponential rhythms with MIDI notes without having to go through the audio warp process. So I'll just give a quick demonstration and show you how to set it up. It works by, you drag it, it's a MIDI device, so you put it on a MIDI track and you record it into another MIDI track. So you receive from the track that holds the plugin and you arm that plugin. In the device then you can control all the parameters. I'll go through these in a second, but I'm just going to make a default one here. And once you've set all your parameters, you arm it with this button and then just hit record in Ableton. Cool, so there it is. So this makes what I'm calling an exponential, what he's calling an exponential rhythm is an accelerando, really. So every note is exponentially getting shorter than the last rhythm in this case. And I'll just drag this onto operator so you can have a little listen to what it sounds like. Here it is. Cool. And I will talk about that little note at the end there. There's a few things to get through. Okay, so I'll talk about the parameters that you can control using the plugin first of all. The amount of beats here, I'm just going to start with that. This is the amount of notes in the exponential rhythm. And below that, the convergence beat is how much time you want to squeeze those notes in. So the settings that we just had before was squeezing 23 notes inside of 4 Ableton beats. So here, it's a 23 note accelerando that's been squeezed into 4 beats or 1 bar, I guess. You can control the curve steepness with this part here. So if I make something that's, as I approach 1, it gets closer to being a non-exponential rhythm, so the notes remain the same value. So if I do something like 1.1 and draw that, you'll see it's a lot closer to the straight line that's in this graph. The straight line in the graph then represents Ableton's constant beat, whereas the curve below the line represents notes starting longer and getting closer together. So the closer you get to 1, the less steep the rate of acceleration is. So I'll just make another one here so you can compare it to that. Oh, I don't think I did that right. Yeah, there we go. Let's draw that again. Here we go. Yeah, so you got to hit draw every time you do it. There we go. Okay, so on this one, the first note is 231 milliseconds, and the final note here is 158. So the notes are gradually getting shorter, but the rate of change in the exponential rhythm is different. So listening to the first one again, and now the second one, that's very, very slow. Very, very slow rate of change. If you make the value less than 1, you can probably guess what happens is it actually makes a ritardando. So the notes gradually, they start faster and get slower. I'll just make this one. This phi and minus phi thing is a default curve generator thing there. So if you can't be bothered experimenting with that, these ones work pretty good. So here is a ritardando now. And you can see it's doing the same thing, and except now the notes are getting longer, so it's, you know, gradually getting slower. Listen to that here. Cool. Okay, the next thing that I'll talk about is this little note down the bottom here. Okay, so I left that little note in there intentionally so that once you've made your exponential rhythm, you can easily use the MIDI stretch markers to resize it. So we made this happen over 4 Ableton beats, and if we decided that we wanted it to happen over 1.5, we can just drag it down like that. And it preserves the ratio between them. You can also then flip this so that it becomes, you know, the other way, and you know, you can create some pretty cool things if you lay them on top of each other. Whoops, if you lay them on top of each other and all that kind of thing. Do all that kind of stuff and hear crazy stuff. So lots of fun to be had with all that kind of stuff. Obviously that little note there that you make is audible, so you need to delete it every time you make a new one. But it was just there so that you can control the MIDI stretch markers better, because if it's not there, so in this one I'll just delete that note there. Oops. Yeah, so now you can see that little note there. If I delete it, right, and I want to use it, it places this MIDI stretch marker at the beginning of the final note in the exponential rhythm. So now when it tries to group things, it's like, it's not at the end of the exponential rhythm. So I left that note in there so that you can kind of easily fit it in between 2 points. If you wanted the last note to happen on a beat, you just delete it and then do that. The next thing I'll talk about as well is that the maths for making these exponential rhythms were derived from a parabola, and parabolas basically, like, yeah, this is maths, get excited. Yeah, so parabolas start slow and then gradually get faster, and they get faster exponentially. So the first note often, to my listening anyway, is out of proportion in its rate of change. So this first note is considerably longer. So you may want to, when you're playing around with it, just delete that first one and do that. And you might get something that sounds a little bit more like a natural increase in speed. Yes, that was just another point I thought I'd make. If you are interested in this kind of stuff as well, I am making some other ones that are on the Max for Live objects database as of tonight or today, I think, and you can check them out there. Yeah. Oh, and did I talk about the grouping thing? Oh no, I didn't talk about the grouping thing. Yeah, so the grouping thing just groups everything into pitches and velocities. So I'm going to do 4 and 2 and keep this 23 notes inside of 1 bar thing happening here. So I'll just record that. It. Oops, I had to draw it again and reset it. Here we go. So these rhythms now are grouped in 4s, so you can kind of, if you want to make like arpeggios with it, this is useful for that. You know, you can play around with it in that kind of a way. Yeah, so that's what the pitch grouping does, and the velocity grouping does it so you can hear like a louder beat every, I set it to 2 just then. So if I wanted to select every second note, I could do that. And you're not hearing that because operator is currently set to not be doing anything with velocity, but if you did turn the velocity up, you would hear it. Obviously. So I think that's pretty much it, yeah. So if you have any suggestions or questions or comments, please contact me. You can leave them here or on the Max for Live page, or you can email me. And thanks so much for checking it out. Cheers.